Welcome to Dr. M Health Corner Talk Show. Welcome back. It's a Friday, 12:15 p.m. MST, 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, I am bringing to you guys a beautiful show that has a lot of controversy. But you know what? I love controversy because it makes us think as humans. Today, we'll be bringing a topic of sexuality, a topic that is so broad, it requires probably 3-day discussion, but we're going to make it very small because it's particularly today focusing on men and their choices of sexual orientation. Today, I'm bringing to you Dr. Joe Card. He is a sex therapist, a relationship therapist, basically based in the US. And of course, he's also a co-director of Medical Sex Therapies, Sex Therapy Institute. And he basically trains students who are into PhD in the sex therapy and relationship therapies. Welcome, Dr. Joe.
It's so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. This topic, you know me, you captured my attention when you were talking about this passionately. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring you to my show because in our practice, we both know this, men come with all the sexual orientations. And as therapists, as clinicians, we have to respect and listen to their stories. So, Dr. Joe, tell me, what is the difference between bisexuality and heteroflexibility? Is there any difference, if we may ask?
There is a difference, and a lot of people don't. They can't hear it because they think one cancels the other, and it doesn't. So bisexuals are people that have attraction to multiple genders, 2 or more genders, and it's constant and consistent over time. You know, so they might be attracted to both equally, one more, one not more, one more romantically, one less sexually. But then there are sexually fluid people, which we would call heteroflexible, homoflexible. These people, it's not consistent. It's more episodic. It's random, where they might be, it's context driven. So suddenly they're attracted to someone of their own gender or another gender that isn't what they're normally attracted to. And it's only about this person, this time, and this place. It doesn't generalize to other people of the same gender. It just doesn't.
You know what? It's interesting you saying it depends on that particular moment, because I know that a lot of times when straight men, we're going to use that terminology, the straight men that don't engage to such fluidity, they tell us, no, this is a homosexual man who is in the closet. Can you comment on that? Because usually them in defense of their sexuality, of heterosexuality, they say these are men that are on the closet, they are lying, they are not straight men.
So the problem is a lot of gay men think this too, because when you're in the closet, you think you're straight. You know, we're taught as children that we're only straight and we're only cisgender. So it makes sense that you think you're straight until you come out gay. Then people think that what you do sexually is who you are. So if you're having gay sex, then you must be gay. But that we don't think that about women. We only do it to men. We stigmatize men and we fetishize women. We give them room. We don't say, oh, now she's no longer straight, the poor thing. Now she has to be lesbian or gay or whatever. We get that she could be straight and have sex with women. When men have sex with men, they think the homosexual act, because it is a homosexual act, there are 2 men. Right. But what we do in the bedroom doesn't define who we are as a person, or nor our identities.
That's interesting. Now let's talk about, why do straight men suddenly have such attraction? And I mean, we know biology tells us that a man sleeps with a woman sleeps with a man. What is going on? Is it a psychosocial issue, socio-demographic, lifestyle? What is it exactly, Dr. Joe?
It's an erotic issue. I call it an erotic orientation. We have a sexual orientation to whom we're attracted. We have erotic orientation, what gets us off, what brings us to orgasm, what turns us on. So the men that I'm talking about that have sex with men are not attracted to men. They're attracted to the sex act. They're attracted to maybe anal sex, maybe oral sex, maybe a kink, maybe a power exchange, maybe something that they could be submissive, that they can't be with a woman. There's so many manifestations of this, and it has nothing to do with his attraction to this other man.
Now it takes us to our discussion we had on Clubhouse. Tell me, when you say that there's either power or there's also an attraction to the actual act, let's dive onto that. Because last time when we talked, you talked about these men, they're not necessarily homosexual. Sometimes it has something to do with the dynamic they're having at home with their woman. Please take us through that.
Right. So
because honestly, you know what, Dr. Joe, the thing is, I'm asking this because I basically coach men, and men come to me talking about the feeling of inadequacy with their women,
yes.
and finding themselves attracted to men, not necessarily in a romantic way. Like, I'm glad you are differentiating. There's romantic attraction and sexual attraction, even in this kind of engagement.
Yes, yes. And I loved when you came on Clubhouse because you could speak intelligently about this and understood it in a way without trying to bat it away or rename it,
Nope.
or, you know. So the thing is, let's say men have erectile, we don't call, in sex therapy, we don't say disorder, we say erectile disappointment, right? So now he's ashamed, and men are usually the ones who stop being sexual first before women because they're ashamed. They're having random periods where they can't have erections. So they might turn to men so they can still be sexual. They're not going to cheat on their wives. Being with a woman is cheating. So then, and some of these men enjoy prostate exams, receiving anal sex. They're too afraid to tell their spouses or their female partners because they're afraid of being told they're gay or thinking that they're gay. So they turn to men so that they can engage in the sex act that they enjoy, but then they don't have to feel guilty about it because it's not a woman.
Interesting. When you mentioned the prostate, I've seen it also when I do exams, like the direct rectal exam. I've got men that will just comment randomly that, you know what, that was not too bad. Actually, I enjoyed it, and they laugh about it. So now you're bringing me to an understanding that maybe truly they did enjoy that quick examination there and that stimulation. So now, if women are basically watching us here, what message are you gonna give these women who have these men that seemingly we know that they are heterosexual,
Yeah,
and seem to go outside to have this pleasure? Because you mentioned the erectile dysfunction, because there's many other things you actually mentioned there that sometimes it has something to do with, at this moment, I wanted to be submissive. Because a
yes,
lot of times sex, and depending on your culture, right, sex has always been placed on the shoulders of men. Now you are telling me that men sometimes they want to have that submissive role in
yes.
relationship, but how come they are not discussing it with their females and be still submissive?
Heterosexual couples and mixed sex couples do not often talk about sex. Same sex couples do. They do it right from the beginning. Sometimes gay men do it right in the advertisements. They're looking for their personal ads. So straight couples do not talk about sex, and they need to, so they can negotiate and talk about these things. And then when they do, one or both have a disgust response, and then they make their partner disgusting. You know, you want to do that? Where did you learn that? You must not be my alpha male, masculine, whatever. And he doesn't want to face all that, or he's afraid she's going to treat him this way. So turning to men is an opportunity to have a sexual release without having to worry about all of that stigma.
And you even said that they even say to you they do it because it has less of that stigma that I have cheated. When they do it with men, it's not as heavy as, okay, because, and then the other thing, mention that part, Dr. Joe, you said they feel when they do it with a man, men are not as clingy as women.
Right. Well, and they're not as relational, so it's more transactional, right? I don't have to get to know your name. We don't have to go to coffee. My cat doesn't have to meet your cat, whatever that is, you know? We can go to a bar. We can go to not a bar, but even the bathroom down the hall, or just meet up in a hotel, do it and be done, and it's over. And this isn't to be negative toward women at all, but women are more relational. Women want to have the experience of the two people as well. I mean, women can do it transactionally too, but men who are having sex with men, it's predominantly transactional.
Wow. So now, is there any difference when it's a woman doing it with another woman? Is it also the transactional theory, or it's different?
It is. I don't know as much about it, but I'll tell you, the women that talk to me about it say that it's not just transactional. They want to feel good about the woman. They want to know her. They want to have some kind of connection. With the men, so a lot of straight men fantasize about giving oral sex to other men. But when I talk to them, I'm like, well, what does the guy look like? When you look up, what do you want him to look like? I don't care what he looks like. I care about giving oral sex. It turns me on to do what women do. I've seen it in porn so much. I enjoy it. I've thought about it. I want to try it without having to define my orientation around it.
Wow. So basically, like you said, it's a matter of negotiating with your partner and being open about what needs you have in the relationship. But in your practice, Dr. Joe, do you find women, like heterosexual couples, receptive to this, or do you find men are doing it secretly? What is, like, I mean, yes.
Yeah, men are doing it secretly because they're afraid of women and what their reactions are. I end up seeing people after the women find out from the secret, so we're having to deal with a whole secret situation for them. So that's no good. I mean, I do know that there's a growing amount of women that are open to this. I just did a TikTok on this. I said, women out there, tell me, would you date and marry a bisexual man? And most of the women, I'd say 90% of the responses said yes. Now, this guy's not bisexual, but the woman would have to be confident in understanding that the sex act with another man is not about his orientation. It's about his erotic orientation.
Wow, that's interesting. So, is there any cultural component in your interviews or your interactions with people? Do you find more predominant culture over another?
That's a
Or
great
it's just
question.
like,
I
yeah?
don't. I really don't. I remember when the down low came out in 2006 and the book came out and everything on the down low and there were black men. I remember shouting at the TV because I knew that these men were not all gay and they're not all black and they're not all on a socioeconomic status or whatever. It could be any man in any situation who has an interest in having some kind of dynamic with another man, and it's not related to who, race, religion. I haven't seen that.
Wow. And let's talk about mental health when it comes to these situations. Is there any correlationship between mental health, where these men are at emotionally at the moment they have this, or it's just a random, like you said, it's an erratic thing? Is it a random thought? Is it a random exploration, or they are struggling somehow?
Sometimes it's random. Sometimes they're not having sex with their spouse. I hesitate to say this because I don't want women to think if I don't have sex with him, he's going to go gay or something, or he's going to do something gay, or you know what I mean? It's
Right,
not your fault.
right.
It's not a woman's fault. But what happens to a man is he's not getting enough sex. He doesn't want to cheat, like we said. So he'll turn to men. Sometimes it's just context driven. He's in a certain situation on a work site. Some guy has come up to him, offered him money. There's been drinking. There's been some interest, some sexual tension between them because maybe there's flirting. But it's only that guy. And that's where people don't understand. They think, well, if he does it, he's gay. No, I'm gay, and I have lots of guys I could have sex with. I'm attracted to lots of men. Randomly, though, sometimes a woman will walk into my life, and I'll be like, oh, but I'm not attracted to women in general. But this woman, in this moment, yeah, I think I might be able to do that. That's different.
Wow. 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 So that's interesting. So this does not necessarily say it has happened at this moment, and tomorrow or next year or next week it could happen with the same person. You could still continue with life.
Right.
So tell me, Dr. Jo, what is the role of our faith? You know how people they throw in that, and also how have you found men who do it? Is there any guilt after this? Because I mean, we can't deny the fact that people believe in something, but the reality is we're starting to see. I'm Christian. I've heard a lot of about a lot of Christian men doing these things.
Yeah.
And what is the role of the faith, and how do they feel when they realize that I belong to this faith, and I know I uphold these regulations or rules, whatever expectations.
So sometimes that adds to the excitement, right? So it's so taboo, and I've been taught it's so bad to do, and so doing it adds to the excitement. But I will tell you, for the most part, and it's a clinical population. The men I'm speaking to are troubled. That's why they come here, because they don't know. Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I bi? And they don't care what they are. The straight men don't care what they are. They just want to know. Being sexually fluid is disturbing to men. It isn't disturbing to women, because women get to be sexually fluid. They can have that. They can be. Do you ever hear of lugs, lesbian until graduation in college, right? So women get this permission. If a guy, we don't have a word for that for men.
No.
So that's really the issue is, and the way I can tell a man to help himself figure out whether he's gay, straight, or bi is the gay or bisexual men don't even make it to my office when they're just coming out. They're too homophobic. They're not. They're too afraid of coming to a gay therapist. The straight men want to know and want to be gay if that's what they are. And I have to tell them they're not.
So tell me, in your practice, Dr. Jo, now if a man is caught, what has been the percentage of successful relationships with the other partner, like the heterosexual partner? Because I'm trying to imagine, if you didn't know you were getting yourself into a heterosexual man who is fluid, what is your observation? Do they come back and say, hey, my marriage ended, or my relationship ended, or we're still working out things? What has been your observation on this?
It's really all over
Because
the
I mean,
map.
it could be shocking to the other partner, right?
It's betrayal. You know, we have to get past the betrayal and the infidelity and the lie and all of that, of course. But if they're willing to do the work and understand what it really is, and most of the people I work with do, then they can get past it. But if they're unwilling and they're like, nope, nope, this is gay. Nope, I'm not willing to look at it. Or if it is gay or it is bi, then that's a whole different trajectory of then how we're going to integrate this into the marriage. But for the straight guy that has sex with men, it can be stopped because he's not doing it. He's doing it for pleasure. It's not obligatory. It's not part of his orientation.
Wow. Dr. Joe, you know what? Before we started this conversation, I was talking to a group of friends and colleagues. And recently, I was actually on Clubhouse and I went to a room of neuroscientists and they were talking about actually there's some likeness in the brains of homosexual men with brains of women, the hippocampus.
I've heard this.
Did you?
Yes,
Like, honestly. And then now, where do we draw the line? Because I know that this is something that is tabooed in the society, and we come from all different conservative societies. So now, when do we start bringing such evidence to the public to realize that people actually, some of these people are naturally like this? This is their biochemistry. This is their biology.
And so what is your question about it?
My question was, how now, with what's happening in the world, with all the homosexuality, heterosexuality, the bisexuality and all, now studies are coming out and we are told that actually there's people that have some similarity, because we both know this brain of a man and a woman are different.
Yeah.
But then we hear that there's that room I was in with the neuroscientists, they were saying, actually now we are taking even a step further. Homosexual men, they seem to have a hippocampus that is the size as the woman. So such men, they tend to have homosexual behaviors. So what I'm trying to say is, now are we coming to a world where people need to know more about this? Because you know how the minority group of homosexual people are judged and they are attacked. I mean, look at how they are less they don't go for mental health support. There's less of them going for medical support because some are attacked and they are killed.
Yeah.
So how do we bring this to the society that actually there is some biology in this? How do we start normalizing this? Because it's bashed all the time.
I really don't know. I really think that I'm 58 years old and I've watched this my whole life, and things have gotten so much better, but in some ways they're exactly the same. In certain countries, you can be killed for being homosexual. Still the fact that there are laws against us. So I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be, and there's such a strong religious component against it because they cherry pick what's in the Bible and then decide that this is against you. You know, I'm Jewish, right? There's this great documentary called Trembling Before God about Orthodox Jews. And the gay guy says, hey, Rabbi, I don't have anal sex. Never. I'm not into it. I'm not sinning, right? I'm doing everything else with the guy, but I'm not having sodomy, and sodomy is your issue, right? And the rabbi was like, he couldn't talk. He was babbling. He didn't know what to say. So I think there's always going to be a level of hate. I don't know.
Right. Because, I mean, and the sad thing is, people that are more religious and all that, they tend to believe if you are a Christian, you claim to have this faith and you are accommodative. You are like, I have gay friends, lesbian friends, and I adore them in the manner that I see the other person, because I see a person in front of me. How they choose to live their lives, how they lead their sexual orientation is not my business.
Right.
But I do see this, even people not wanting to be associated with others. Like, I mean, how do we get to the point where people understand actually it's bigger than just seeing the gay man in front of you? This, like, now let's talk about this, even intersex people. You understand? So there's so much that is happening in sexuality, and we tend to want to use the one that this is what we know in the society and nothing else, right? Oh my gosh, Dr. Joe. So tell me, and then with the counseling, when these people engage in such, when they come to you, are they coming to just understand that, okay, am I straight, or do they come back for reassurance, for counseling? Because I mean, people normally, they come to a therapist for continuous care.
Yes. They're coming to try to understand it, right? So I usually have 4 questions I ask these guys. You know, earlier I said I can tell them whether they're gay, straight, or bi. I can't. I'm not a gay whisperer. I can help the guy come out for himself. So I have 4 questions. Do you have any childhood noticing, youthful noticing? For me, I have a lot of memories of boys I was attracted to, boys I was crushing on. Straight men who have sex with men are all girls, all females. There's no boys. The second question is, are they homophobic? These men are not. They're not homophobic. The gay guys are so homophobic, like I said, they won't come and see me. The straight guys having sex with men are not homophobic. The beach test, I made up the beach test. The idea of when you're on the beach, what are you looking at? Men, women? For me, no offense to women, but the women are in my way, right? I'm looking at men. I'm looking at the adult sons of the women. The straight men who have sex with men are looking at women. They're not attracted to the men on the beach. And the last question, the fourth question is, who do you want to come home to? Where's your identity? Where's your sense of belonging? The straight men who have sex with men say women. And the other people, bisexual men and non-straight men say men. Or bisexual men will say one or the other. But it's really, really clear that the erotic orientation and the sexual orientation of the men who are having sex with men is primarily toward women.
Wow. So it's an exploration thing. They are interested in that act during that period of their lives, right? Any influence when they are in their midlife, or it could happen anytime in their life?
Anytime. Now, there's a researcher who's studying college-age guys, and they're more experimental, he notices. But he's not really studying midlife guys. But I will tell you this, I find this really odd. People understand, and I actually do see more of this because I'm a therapist specializing in sexual abuse. People understand when it's a result of childhood sexual abuse. You were perpetrated by a male, so you're reenacting it as a male. They understand it when it's done for money. They're like, oh yeah, I get all that. But if you're doing it for fun, then you're gay. And that's not critical thinking. I'm enjoying it through sexual abuse. I'm enjoying it through, not from the abuse, but now that I'm an adult, the result of the abuse, I'm enjoying it because somebody paid me. It's different, but it's the same act and they're still enjoying it. So we have to critically look at these things.
Wow. Dr. Joe, you're coming up with another concept now because
sorry.
No. The thing is, you know what? In my practice, the men that I've seen in just during my practice is who become homosexual. There's usually that sexual component of, you know what, I was molested when I was a child. Remember, I asked this question in your room,
Yes.
that is there any association of men who are sleeping with men only? But now that I was saying to you that in the rooms that I was in now, neuroscience shows that true homosexual men, there is some structural similarity to women. I was shocked. Yes.
Well, that makes sense.
Yes. And then, of course, like you were saying, that it's not always there is sexual abuse prior to this act. Like you say.
Right. And I don't want to get confused with anyone. Sexual abuse doesn't create homosexuality. It doesn't create heterosexuality. Sexual abuse disorients people. It does not orient anybody. So when straight men have been sexually abused, they reenact the trauma by having sex with men. They're reenacting their trauma. That's not about orientation. Now we're talking, that's about trauma. Gay men have been sexually abused too, but it doesn't make them gay.
Wow. So you could be sexually abused and be okay and be heterosexual. I mean, we see that. But we should not come from a place of ignorance on this other side and think that men who are homosexual were molested. It's not an absolute. And they could have had that experience, but doesn't necessarily change their orientation.
No, and there's no research showing that we're any more abused than straight boys or bisexual boys. You know, we're all at risk.
All at risk. Wow, that's quite interesting. Dr. Joe, this was amazing because I wanted to bring you to this space because I know that these conversations, they trigger a lot of people, and there's a lot of anger sometimes when a conversation like this is brought to forward. And also the issue that us as therapists, clinicians, we do see this variety of men. And honestly, sometimes I myself, I've been shocked in so many ways because where I didn't even know how to respond because of not knowing what this you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now to have someone who studies this and who deals with it every day and also telling me that there's even studies, it's quite eye-opening. And also I think for our viewers who are watching, I think the key thing is this discussion was meant to bring forth Dr. Joe to actually ask to avoid the element of judging people, because I think when people, they are faced with something that is not familiar, Dr. Joe, they hate and they fear, and it makes them, there's a whole sort of things. And then people, they start discriminating others. So this space is to actually create a safe space for everyone to come and orientate, and also to educate, enlighten people, honestly. Because now, if you talk about men being starved at home, because I do see this in menopause. I'll talk about my practice, where women in menopause, they will normalize that I'm in my 40s and my husband understands. I'm not interested, doc. So now the question is, where is the man getting the satisfaction? Right. So these are the things that for our viewers to watch out for. And I'm not saying giving every day to your husband would not stop him, or your partner would not stop him to explore outside. But I think the transparency, like Dr. Joe was saying, that it's very important to be transparent and talk from the beginning what you are about in the relationship you are entering into, and also bringing these conversations, because sex discussion, Dr. Joe, it has a religious component, it has a cultural component. People don't talk about these things, right? And tell me, Dr. Joe, before we close, these men, do they find they have better orgasms when they have a certain sexual act, either with a heterosexual partner or a same sex, or it's the same experience they were looking for?
It's just different. They never say it's better. They always say it's just different. It's a whole different dynamic, a whole different experience. The only thing that's different is that they can do it and then forget about it and not have to deal with it, or not have to deal with the person. And that's the part that they appreciate about it.
Oh, is it blocking? How does it being forgotten? This was an unusual act for them as a heterosexual. Was it just that act? Was it just an impulsive act and then moved on?
Yeah, it was nothing. It's not like, I can't deal with it. It's like, that was different. I did it. It's no big deal. It's not a big deal because they don't really try to name it, or they don't try to, it doesn't disorient them until they're discovered. So their spouse discovers them, their female partner discovers them, or they find themselves doing it more and more and they don't know why. Maybe there's an out of control compulsive experience to it. But for the most part, it was just like, I did it. It's no big deal.
Wow. We learn as we go along. Dr. Joe, what can you share here with my people as we close, as we are wrapping up? I know that you have to go to another meeting. Thank you so much, by the way, for your time. I'd like you to share some word. And of course, to our viewers, Dr. Joe is available on Instagram. He does a lot of education. As you can see, check out his link on here below. You can access his podcast. His education is just phenomenal. He has opened my eyes. Like, honestly, you've opened my eyes to a lot of things that my male patients were asking me. I didn't have questions. I didn't have answers to. But to have a resource like you with all the research-based stuff, it's quite amazing. So Dr. Joe, you can leave a word for my people here before we close.
Well, my tagline to all this stuff, when straight men have sex with men, is I always say it's not a gay thing, it's a guy thing. And people don't understand male sexuality. They just don't. They don't understand that men can have relational sex, of course, and they can fall in love and all of the romantic stuff, but they can also have transactional sex, and it's nothing to them. And so if that could be a relief to some people to understand that it's not this big story they make up around it.
Wow. Interesting. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for your time, and I would love to bring you back so that we can talk more about discussions like this. They are very uncomfortable, even with other colleagues. Actually, you know what? The funny thing is, I was asked by colleagues that, how did you choose man coaching? And I said, I'm choosing it because I see the suffering they have when they come to my clinic, and also taking so long to say, doc, I cannot have an erectile dysfunction. I cannot have an erection. I am struggling with erectile dysfunction. So someone had to do it. Someone had to do it. Men deserve the same satisfaction women have. And if we're gonna have these discussions, and like you said, this part cannot leave my mind. Men who are dissatisfied at home, who are starved, like when we brought that study, that who are starved, because sometimes women, they normalize that, my husband understands me. I've heard women, even socially, when we chat, women, they tend to normalize that my husband understands. And they are in their mid-40s.
Yeah.
Men, they have a drive, so it's easy to also have such instincts outside your marriage. So guys, to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. I see people who stayed throughout time here. Thank you so much. We're coming back here same time, same week. We basically come and talk about these conversations because I feel that if we don't have these conversations that are proven, that are science-based, we're gonna go out there and talk about stuff that have no evidence. So this is meant to have and clarify things that we're not sure about. Me bringing all these professionals is just to bring us awareness of issues that matter to people, because reality is we are all here having the same human experience. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for your time. I cannot thank you enough for this, and I'm hoping to connect with you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.